body. And now you're embodying the truth of that knowledge, of that philosophy, of that theory. So then you're teaching your body and instructing your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Okay, so then that information that's coming as a new experience is changing your biology in some way, and we've actually shown this. So then if you've done it once, then it means you should be able to do it again. And the idea is to be able to repeat an experience. And if you can repeat it over and over again, both neurologically and chemically, neurochemically, you can condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you can do it so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your conscious mind, it's innate in you.
So I want to map out this process so that I make sure I understand it. Starts with the neurology, which I heard is a thought which you then ingrain in your mind by teaching it to someone else. Is that accurate?
Well, first thing you have to do is you got to give people information.
Yeah.
And science is probably the closest to the truth in terms of information. And so when your brain is exposed to information and you're present and you're paying attention, that neurons begin to connect. That's what learning is. Learning is forging new synaptic connections. The Nobel Prize research, Kandel, in the year 2000, the researcher said that if you learned one bit of information and you paid attention to that information for about an hour, you would double the number of connections in your brain as a result of your interaction with that information. But if you don't review it, if you don't repeat it, if you don't think about it, the circuits prune apart, right? So if learning is making new synaptic connections, and remembering is maintaining and sustaining them. So it's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. So you learn it. Once I got a person's head nodding, then they turn to the person next to them and say, let me try this out. Let me try this out and let me see if I can repeat it. And so between the two of them, they exchange that information and they start to build a model of understanding. I understand, I got that, okay. Then we advance the information a little bit more, and they're adding new stitches into the three-dimensional tapestry of their gray matter. And they have to remind themselves what they've learned, reproduce that same level of mind. Mind is the brain in action. As you install those neurological circuits in your brain, then now you're prepared. It's the forerunner to the experience. You're prepared for the experience. So give the proper instruction, get your body involved, get involved in the process. The experience then causes circuits to become more enriched. That's what experience does. And then it makes a chemical, and that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the stronger the emotion you feel from the experience, the more you remember it.
And what is that experience? What can
abundance, health, wholeness, a mystical experience, success, a new relationship, a new career, a new life, whatever that vision that person wants to arrive at in the future, and to actually go from the thought of that vision to the actual experience of it. And the distance between that thought and that experience is called time. So if we can teach people to shorten the distance between the thought of what they want and the experience of having it, then they start believing more that they're the creator of their life.
What would you say to somebody that doesn't think thoughts matter that much? I would say 95% of the world plus, or maybe more, 99% of the world plus sees thoughts as something that we are, it's my head talking. It's me talking in my head. And as long as I don't act on those thoughts, they're inconsequential.
I would say then that's the truth.
Is it the truth?
I don't know. But for me, my thoughts do matter. I think every thought that you have makes a chemical. And you can have thoughts that make you feel good and thoughts that make you feel bad. And I think that if 90% of the thoughts that we think are the same thoughts as the day before, the same thoughts lead to the same choices. The same choices lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors will create the same experiences. And the same experiences produce the very same emotions. And those same emotions influence a person's very same thoughts. And their biology, their neurocircuitry, their neurochemistry, their hormones, and even their gene expression stays the same because they're staying the same. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that if you think differently and you learn new information and you have new thoughts, if you can make new choices and demonstrate new behaviors and create new experiences and arrive at new goals and feel new emotions, I would say that's evolution. And I think that people really, really secretly believe in themselves on some level. And I think being defined by a vision of the future, or really always dreaming of another great experience, I think is a great reason to wake up in the morning.
I've had lots of conversations with very smart people on this podcast from multiple disciplines, psychiatrists, psychologists, athletes, health practitioners, and they've given me such great advice which is irrefutable scientific advice on so many areas of my life. And for some reason, there's still areas of my life that I still can't act upon that advice. And I think probably for most of my listeners who've heard great advice on this podcast and they think, yes, that's who I want to be. I have an intention to stop eating sugar at 1 a.m. at night, or I have an intention to become organized or to be this kind of friend or partner. They have the information.
Right.
There's something stood in the way of me doing something about that information on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, I can give you a few answers for that. Unfortunately, it normally takes crisis, trauma, disease, diagnosis, betrayal, loss. A person has to reach that lowest denominator where nothing's making that feeling go away.
Has to.
Well, they don't have to, but this is the human condition. This is the moment where they don't feel like returning the texts. They don't feel like going to dinner and seeing the same people. They don't feel like watching the same television show any longer. The sports car, the wardrobe, none of that is making this feeling go away. This is a moment of reckoning for the soul. And this is really when you could actually see yourself through the eyes of someone else, because you don't feel like yourself anymore. And that's the moment where people begin to change. They can see how they've been thinking. They can notice how they've been acting. They could pay attention or become aware of how they've been feeling for the last 20 years. And that idea in neuroscience is called metacognition. That's the moment you're no longer the program. Now, what we believe and what we've seen and what I think is much better approach is being defined by a vision of the future. And if you understood that you could actually elevate your state without anyone or anything every single day, and hold whatever that intention of your future is, and it takes a coherent brain to do that, and feel the emotion of your future before it happens. That is, you can't wait for your wealth to feel success. You can't, or abundance. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love. You can't wait for the mystical experience to feel awe, or your healing to feel whole or grateful. That's kind of the old model of reality of cause and effect, waiting for something out there to change, to take away this emptiness, this lack that I feel in here. If you teach people, then they could elevate their state, and we teach that model through meditation. And they can combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion and teach them how to make that heart of theirs more coherent. If they do that properly, then they'll live their life feeling like their future has already happened. Now, from that elevated state, instead of that self-limited state, they can become as conscious of that unconscious self as they could if they were at that limited state, and being defined by that vision of the future, getting up every day inspired by it, and not letting any person, any circumstance, anything in our life remove us from that vision. That would be a day well lived. So then, most people then, they have that vision of the future, but they give up on that vision because in order for them to arrive at that vision, they have to do something. They have to think differently. They have to act differently. They have to feel differently. And it's so much easier to make the same choice every single day. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, you're going to feel uncomfortable because you're stepping from the known into the unknown. So some people would rather cling to their self-pity than take a chance and possibility. They'd rather tell the story of their past instead of telling the story of their future. They'd rather believe in their past instead of believe in their future. It's so much more important, though, to romance your future instead of romance your past. And I think if people understood that they could actually arrive at it, I think many people have done this already in their life. I think everybody, at least once in their life, has done something great. And when they did something great, they just made up their mind. And they made a decision in that moment to do something or to change with such firm intention That the amplitude of energy in making that choice caused their body to respond to their mind. That the choice that they were making to change became a moment in time that they would never forget. And the stronger the emotion they felt in order to change, the more they remembered the choice. And we could say then that they're giving their body a taste of the future emotionally, and they're literally aligning to that destiny. We discovered that if you keep doing that every day, somehow you'll arrive at that destiny, and your biology will literally begin to change to look like you're living in a different life.
What are some of the biggest myths relating to behavior change and, I guess, character and personality change that hold people back?
Probably belief. I think in so many ways that a belief is an unconscious process. A belief is a thought you keep thinking over and over again until it's hardwired in your brain. And most beliefs are based on past experiences. And so many people have a belief about something that has to change in order for them to arrive at a new place in their life. And what we discovered a lot of times with people in this work is that when they say, for example, they were healing themselves of a health condition, sometimes they would do their meditations 3 times in one day. And I asked them, why 3 times? And they said, because I stopped believing. And when I caught myself no longer believing in it, I had to sit down and change my belief again. In other words, they had to get up believing more in their future instead of believing less. And I think that when that occurs, change their state of being, then all of a sudden it's no longer a have to. So I think that it's something that's a limitation. I also think you actually unconsciously we're always waiting for something. So now you become a work in progress by investing in yourself. Feel the relief. And when you invest in yourself, you invest in your future. So there's, and I do probably think that's kind of a limited model of reality. I think when you start changing inside of you, and you start seeing creators, the changes happening outside of you. And only when we get the parking space, being a creator, or something good happens to us, do we believe that we're the creator of our life. But imagine a world where everybody actually took responsibility in being the creator of their life and no longer the victim of their life. I think we would see a dramatic shift in consciousness.
That makes people feel uncomfortable. This idea of personal responsibility. It's almost become quite a controversial idea, the idea that we are the creator of our lives, because then I have to accept responsibility for all the bad things that happened. Dave dumped me. I got fired from work. Someone bumped into my car and it hurt my neck.
Well, maybe that happened by default. Maybe that happened by not creating. Maybe you were just left to the randomness of reality that maybe you're not creating. And the fact that you're not creating, you're left to the effects of your environment actually controlling you, controlling your feelings and thoughts. And
by creating, what do you mean by creating? As in
well, if
being intentional.
If you woke up every morning and you truly made time to think like this, okay, if my personality creates my personal reality, and my personality is made of how I think, how I act, and how I feel. If I want to create a new personal reality, a new life, I'm going to have to change my personality. And most people try to create a new reality, a new personal reality, as the same personality, and it doesn't work. We literally have to become someone else. So if you said, okay, let me not default and go unconscious to that 95% of who I am that's programmed. Let me become so conscious of the way I think. Let me become so aware of how I'm going to act today. Let me decide what emotions keep me connected to my past and bring me to a lower level of energy. Let me not go unconscious. And then if you said, okay, if a belief is just a thought I keep thinking over and over again, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? And with attention and with intention, to begin to familiarize yourself with a new way of thinking. Meditation means to become familiar with. If you keep firing and wiring those circuits, you're going to begin to install the hardware. Repeat it enough times and it becomes a software program. That could be the new voice in your head that says, I can, it is possible. If you said, okay, when did I fall from grace yesterday? When did I lose it? Oh my gosh, it was with